enough. That was easy.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Hi, Barry. Hi, Merry Christmas Eve Eve.
Is it Christmas Eve Eve or Christmas Eve Eve Eve? I think it's
Oh, I think it is Eve Eve Eve. Oh, shish. You have enough
Hi,
Eves
Christine.
there.
Nice to see you.
Whenever the heck it is. Yes.
It's pre-Christmas. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Christmas
Just.
isn't quite here. There's a couple more shopping days. People are feeling a little panicked about that, I think.
I noticed. Yeah.
This is goingsolomedia.com with Let's Talk About Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
Oh, and we're on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, TV and radio's podcast, #1 singles internet talk network. Wow.
There you go. There you go.
Wow. Very exciting.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about how to keep the conversation going, period. Certainly, if you're hoping to ask somebody out for a date, coffee, a walk, or something, that can be really awkward. And I was thinking when we had this subject come up, this is the time of year when it can be really awkward keeping conversations going. So I'm figuring this can help not just in your romantic life, but maybe in your family, personal, work life too.
Also in your social life too, not just romantic, but just around, meeting people out in public. If you're going, especially holiday events that are still going on. I mean, there's more this year than last year because of the pandemic. So there's definitely opportunities to meet people. But the question is, are you out of practice from being locked up for so long?
I'm thinking that too. People got out of practice. I mean, there's certainly people that just don't feel good at it anyway, but even people that were good at it, I think you're right that some people we just got a little, you and I didn't, but other people kind of got out of practice. You and I have just an easy time keeping conversations going. And I want people to understand that we're very sympathetic for the lots of people who don't find it easy.
Oh, yeah.
And there's certainly times when I've gotten tongue-tied. Hard to believe, but I have.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah. So I heard something really fun that I thought this would be kind of a fun suggestion.
Yes.
It was one of the parents at the ranch, the equine therapy ranch where I volunteer. And she said to ask somebody if they could have an ability, a talent, know how to do something without any training for 24 hours, what would it be?
Interesting.
I know. And some people had to think about it a little bit. Some people came up with answers right away, and they were across the board. Flying a commercial jet liner, racing in the Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I wanted to dance with Alvin Ailey's dance company. That would be
Ooh,
mine. It was
nice.
what I had thought I was going to do at one point in my life. I was just never limber enough. My body just doesn't matter what I do. It never got that much.
Right.
So, do you have an answer, Barry, or do you want to think about it?
Well, the first one that came up, because when you said it, the thing that you said, also one of the examples is race car driver. That was always one of the things I had as a kid wanted to do, but that's more like when I grew up, I wanted to be one.
Oh.
But in terms of other things, right, a skill, oh, this would be fun. If I did something, if I could, now this is a big ask, of course.
Yeah.
If I can actually get all the heads of state in one place and do peace brokering in 24 hours and change the world, that'd be like, ooh, that would be quite something.
That's a very cool answer. I've asked this a lot and nobody said that. That would be really, I love that. So there's something, if you just put a little note in your pocket to remind yourself, oh, ask the people in a group setting or one-on-one, because then you say, why? Why would you like to do that? And you can hear stories about what they always wanted to be as a kid, why you would love to do this for the world. I mean, doesn't that lead to a greater conversation right there? And wouldn't you learn about the other person too? Do I want to go out with somebody that has this goal?
It's a good way of doing it, yeah. Because the other thing about it as well is that goal very personal, or is it very small, or is it very large? Is it very worldly? You never know. So it's always good to find out somebody, because the thing is, when you do learn about people's perspectives by asking what they want. I mean, one of my go-tos oftentimes when I'm having fun and I want a conversation with somebody I don't know that well and I'm not sure what to say, I'll say, my question I ask oftentimes is, what do you want to be when you grow up? It could be in the 60s, doesn't make a difference. It's like, it's just fun to do because people go, what? Because it puts them on, it basically shifts their gears, because part of me goes, oh, think like a kid, then change everything. Same idea in a way. So it's another question to keep on your list in your pocket, sort of thing, because there's fun things to have that keep the conversation going. The great thing is that you can ask questions that are multiple levels. So the question can be a very simple question to ask somebody's perspective, but then when they tell you their answer, it tells you more about who they are as well. Mm-hmm. So it's one of the wonderful gifts of doing that.
And then always ask why, so that you can get a deeper answer. That's why I liked that Loren suggested that once you ask this question, that people really will think about, and then why? Why did you have that answer of this is the thing you'd want to be able to do for one day? What's the bigger reason? And the answers are fascinating, really fascinating. And I was caught very by surprise by a number of the answers, and especially the whys behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of them were very altruistic, and some of them were parental ancestry things, and some were just because I would never really do that in real life, but boy, I'd sure like to be able to feel totally confident doing it. I love those answers.
Could be escapist, could be adventurist, could be just something they never did when they were a kid. It could be anything. Yeah, it's so wonderful.
I know.
Yeah. The second piece I want to add to this conversation, how to keep the conversation going, is we have a tendency as human beings oftentimes to keep thinking we've got to keep talking and talking rather than actually doing what we just did, which is ask questions. And frankly, one of the best ways to keep a conversation going is to shut up and listen.
Yeah. You've heard the adage, that's why there's one mouth and two ears.
Indeed. Yes, exactly. So listen twice as much as you speak, basically, literally. But that's the thing is when you ask questions, give them time to respond. And here's the key, because it's one of the things I've talked about a lot in coaching work too, is when you're listening to somebody, don't have your answer being prepared. Because most people, they listen so they can respond. They don't listen to hear. And that's a big difference. So when you're in conversation is a two-way street. It's talking and listening both ways. So to be willing to just shut up and listen and not try to prepare anything in your head, so you are not actually splitting your focus. You're being focused on their answer alone. For one thing, a lot of people don't get heard that way. So if you can be that listening space that they didn't have before, they'll feel it and they'll receive it. So you might find yourself getting like closer to this person just by listening more clearly and hearing what they're saying without anything else interfering with it.
Yeah, listening to learn is something that I've really worked on my whole life before I even became a coach. It certainly helps as a coach.
Right.
Because I really do want to learn about them as a person. I went to a Hanukkah dinner on Sunday, and I had not met the man that was sitting next to me, and he was vegan. And I said, wow, that's such a big choice. Tell me how you got there. And the path was fascinating. Fascinating.
Yeah.
All the different things that had happened, it wasn't an overnight decision. And that was very interesting to learn why he became vegan, because that's a big commitment, boy.
I know. Yeah, I was actually fun enough speaking about being vegan. I'm not, but I went to Trader Joe's this morning on the way back from my hike. And check it once in a while because it's nice and quiet in the mornings, and because I'm getting at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the mornings, it's nice to get in when stuff is fresh on the shelves and there's nobody around, so you get in and out really quickly. And there was a checkout line, and this woman was standing behind me with a mask on, because some people wearing masks, some are not, because that's the choice. And I went, I know that woman. We started talking, and she's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you forever. And it's a friend of mine I know from my spiritual center. I haven't seen her in probably maybe 4 or 5 years in person. And she had to be staying at a friend locally to where the Trader Joe's is once they were out of town. And I said, I thought she still lived in town. No, she moved down to Downey. And so we were talking. First of all, what came up with me, because as soon as she said Downey, it clicked in my head that I heard a story on NPR yesterday about the roast parade that's getting prepared for is it Sunday or Monday? I think it's Monday this year they're putting it on.
Yeah, they never do it on Sunday, ever.
Right, yeah, it's observed New Year's Day. And there was a talk about how most of the floats now are corporately sponsored. And there's only a few cities, towns that make their own, and Downey's one of them. And they're doing a feature report on the news or on the radio about the mayor and the city and how they've come together to do this. And she didn't know about this. So I'm like, because she moved to Downey a few years ago, and she feels like she's out in the boonies, because it's not very local. There's no Trader Joe's nearby, which is the start of the conversation. It's like if I'm moving anywhere in the country, there's going to be a Trader Joe's and a Costco within a short drive. That's one of my rules.
Me too.
Just like talking, and it was just like a really fun conversation, but also then started reminiscing because we both have been on the same spiritual center for over 20 years and how things have changed. And we're just comparing notes and just talking about the history and memories and friends and things. And literally, I was just going to say hi. We probably spoke for a half an hour. Wow. And it was easy. And it's not like, because we're very close friends, we know each other so well. It's just that we haven't seen each other for a long time. And because there is a comfort with each other. Mm-hmm. And so I guess what I'm attempting to get to the point, long-winded way of saying is that conversation can be easily extended when you do find comfort in being with that person. Doesn't mean you've got to be in love with them or have a planned arrangement with them. You can be comfortable in them, because the thing is, when people are meeting for the first time, it's funny, it's all coming through as I'm saying, which is interesting to watch, is when people get to know each other the first time they meet them, oftentimes they're on their best behavior or they're uncertain of what they're going to hear. One of my traps is I got to keep saying the person's name in my head so it sticks, because oftentimes I hear the name and it's gone. So I'm still working on that. That's a practice skill that I keep learning. And by the way, for those people listening, watching, if you're having a conversation with somebody you just met and you've forgotten their name, do them and you a favor before you leave. Say, we've been so enjoying the conversation. I totally spaced on what your name was. Can you tell me it again? I'll write it down so I remember. So the whole premise is to be comfortable, meaning that when you have an ease with being with that person, because the other part is, for me, for a long time, this was one of the challenges. When I didn't know the person's name, I got really nervous because like, oh my God, they feel insulted because I don't remember their name. Maybe, but quite possibly, maybe not. So the suggestion is be comfortable, be at ease with that person so the conversation can flow more easily, because it is challenging to keep the conversation going when we're feeling uncomfortable and tense and nervous. So the more you can be comfortable, at ease, as if you're talking to an old friend, like I was from Trader Joe's, then the conversation flows more easily. And so you can keep it it's not so much keeping it going, just enjoying the flow that's already happening. Yeah. So that was a long way to make a point.
And I love your story, because you were already open to talking to somebody that you thought was a stranger. Mm-hmm. And then you got that extra level of, oh, we already know each other. And then the other piece is staying aware of some things that are current. Watch at least or listen to at least a half hour of something that talks about something that's happening current mm-hmm. in the world, current in your neighborhood, current in your state, current in another state. So you could say, gosh, I heard, did you hear about? So that it's not just, what about the weather, even though there are places that are having awful weather right now.
Right. But, that can be a big topic, yes, right now.
Very much, depending on where you're flying or not flying or live or family lives. And have a couple of other things, like you had oh, by the way, I just heard, and wow, you live in that city. How fascinating is that? Right. Yeah, actually, my stepdaughter's aunt lives in Torrance, and she's in charge of the float. She's the president, and it's also one of the few cities. Yeah.
There you go. No, so the reason what triggered that is because my friend is vegan. That's what started the whole thing, is because you talked about this guy being vegan. It's like, hang on, I talked to somebody today about that. And it's like, oh, yeah, of course, that conversation I had this morning. So it all connects.
See, and that's why I'm such a big fan of, asking people questions to learn about them, because then you'll go, oh, well, that's really interesting. Boy, that's different than I live. Tell me how you live that way. Right. And even most of the time, it hasn't changed my mind to live any differently. I'm fascinated how they're living. And then I'll meet somebody else, because doesn't this happen, as it just did with your NPR thing? Gosh, you're a vegan too. I was just talking to somebody who changed from being a vegan. Now they're a vegetarian instead, or they're doing keto or whatever the heck it is, because there's so many interesting things right now to say, oh, well, what made you change? Because I was just talking to somebody who just changed the other way. Tell me your story. That if you've talked to, or at least listened to people talk about a variety of subjects, it's also, Clubhouse. You've now gotten me really listening to a lot of Clubhouse things. I can't believe how many times something comes up that in the Clubhouse conversation that I now hear somebody else talk about. And I go, oh, I just heard about that. What do you know about it? And I'll tell you what I know about it. And I think that's really a fun way to have a conversation.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, frankly, is one of the reasons why it's good to have a conversation with somebody to really get to know who the person is is that some people, unfortunately, have this tendency to think they know it all. And so they don't listen to anything else. They're like, I know what's right, and that's the way it is. So like you're doing, which is great, is you're curious and inquisitive about either side of the conversation to learn and to grow from it, which frankly, I think everybody should take that on. I mean, I do the best I can with that too, because some things, yes, I do get caught in the trap of thinking I know more than other people do. Usually I get shown that my error of my ways pretty quickly. But I love conversations, and it's funny. I mean, even things like, because I'm a science fiction fan, I love come meet somebody who also has a fan or a favorite show they watch, or a books they've read, or a movie they follow, or a genre they learn from.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because oftentimes, and it's funny, I don't know if it's true in that field only, probably not, but sometimes I meet people who seem so expert and they will want to prove me wrong because it makes them right, that sort of thing. So in the context of this kind of thing about conversation, keeping it going, some conversations you want to walk away from at certain points if the person who you're talking to is convinced that they're right and wants to make sure you're wrong to prove it.
Yeah.
It's a good time to say, nice to meet you, but bye. So what we're talking about here is keeping the conversation going where it's fun and enjoyable and expansive and educational, because it's not to have the conversation going with everybody you meet. Just to be clear.
Not everybody's your person.
Right.
Even to talk to, much less have a relationship with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that is such a good point. And what I have found is if somebody's making a point and I really disagree or have a really different point of view, I'll often ask, because I really learn a lot by asking, gosh, I have a difference of opinion. I'd really like to share it. What do you think?
Yeah.
Or if they'll say something, I'll think, wow, I think they're a little off base. I have a thought I'd like to share with you that might be different than you're thinking. What do you think? And people are really good about saying yes or no.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get wishy-washy very often. And if I get no's, I go, okay, moving on. We'll try another subject. And if it still doesn't work, I excuse myself to the bathroom. That's a really easy thing for ladies, especially. Excuse me, I'm going to the restroom. Yeah, and then I immediately don't come back to that conversation.
Yeah, or I'm going to go say, the other one is like, I'm going to get you a drink to the bar, I'll see you later type thing. Yeah, it's definitely something.
Yeah. Nope, I want to come. I don't want that either.
True, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to the bar too. I think I need to go to the bathroom before I go to the bar. I'll meet you there. Yeah, sometimes it can be very awkward.
True, yeah.
But the person who says, yeah, I'm so not making them wrong, and they don't have to agree with me ever. I like that they're willing, as I am, to hear the point of view, even if we completely disagree.
Right.
So that's when you find out often, are your ways of looking at the world too far apart? They just might be too far apart on some really key subjects in your life. So if you think about, okay, I really want to go to this party or this activity and see if I could find somebody that we might have some common interests and I might want to have coffee with them, somebody that I'd be attracted to.
Right.
And you think of those, as we've talked many times about, these are really important subjects to me. Could be religion, could be kids, could be politics, could be traveling, whatever the hot button is for you. And so you say, gosh, I was listening to this conversation the other day about this preacher and he was commenting on blah, blah. And I thought he had a really good point. Have you ever thought about that? Oh, no, I think he's completely wrong. And I never would believe that way. Or, I do have a difference of opinion. That's an interesting thought. How do they respond to that? So you're not confronting anybody. You're not putting them on the spot. You're just saying, this is what I'm thinking about it. What do you think? It's a nice way to start a conversation or decide the conversation isn't going to go anywhere.
Absolutely. And that is really the piece is, we're talking about having to keep the conversation going, not just with your ideal mate. We want to make sure we're getting this clear, because obviously our show is oftentimes about finding that ideal mate. But this context, especially around this time of year, is when you find yourself in social situations and environments, especially with the people you don't know, how to do this and how to keep the conversation going. And as we've said a couple of times now, how to end that conversation when it's not going where you want to go.
Yeah. And even if they're not your person, They might know your person.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes just stand and observe, and I watch how people are interacting. And if someone's still being gracious and polite and courteous, especially with somebody who's not being as polite or courteous back, I'm like, I think I want to go talk to them. So
Mm-hmm.
no, people might be watching you and listening to the words you're using and the tone of voice and how
Yes.
many eye rolls you're doing, I mean, you could do it together about it. Oh gosh, did you talk to that person? That was hard on me. It looked like it might have been hard on you. I mean, then you could be like allies together. Gosh, did you need a little rescuing? I would be happy to come and rescue you from this. I mean, that could be kind of a fun thing. You could learn that you really like each other for that reason.
That's the thing. And also, I just underscore that point to affirm as well, is that when we're in conversation, especially at social engagements, we're not just interacting with that person who we're in front of. We're being seen by so many other people as well who may not, and also they might not be aware they're noticing us. So to have that level of awareness of yourself, to notice that you're being seen, not to put yourself in a place of nervousness or trying to remember best behavior, but notice that other people are going to see you. So if this conversation isn't going where you want it to go, if you do free yourself up, you might discover you're going to be in another conversation much more quickly that's going to be much more aligned to who you are and where you want to go. So it's useful to have that awareness.
And feeling a little prepared, a lot prepared before you go into a social situation is what we're hoping to help you do today, because your nerves are palatable to the other person, and often the other person's going to take it personally. And if you are feeling nervous, gosh, I haven't been out socially in a while, I feel a little awkward. Do you feel awkward too? This is kind of crazy. I haven't been in a really big party for a while. How do you manage this? You're looking so much calmer than me. I mean, get an ally. The right kind of people are going to just go, oh yeah, let's do this together. Yeah, boy, I have felt the same way, but I've been to a couple parties before, and this is how, and there's this question I've been asking people, and it's really helpful. So I think enlisting the right kind of people, and you'll know right away if they're going to be your wing person or not. I think be vulnerable, be open, be honest in a cute, charming way. I think both men and women can pull that off really well. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's a good idea, definitely, to do something like that, because the thing is, oftentimes we feel like we're going to pretend or put on a front, and to be, I don't say vulnerable necessarily, but transparent.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be actually a great way to meet the right people, because people who don't like that will walk away from you, which is fine. Because the thing is, by the way, this is not a popularity contest when you go there. This is about finding some people you want to connect with. And it also means people you don't want to connect with can get out of the way for you, so you can then find the right ones.
Yes.
So, it's a good idea.
And we'll have many more tips and hints and conversation starter going information when we come back after these beautiful commercials.
See you in a minute. Nice commercial.
And we're back. I like that you talked about the popularity contest, because boy, it was a problem when I was young. I really had to learn.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have to like me. And I don't have to like everybody. It was kind of shocking. It really was. It was a revelation. And so as you're talking to somebody and you go, they're a fine person. They're just not my person. It's okay.
Yeah.
And if they think you're a fine person, but you're not their person, it's okay too. It's not that horrible, dreaded, big, fat word that upsets everybody, rejection. It's really not.
Right.
So I think that's what makes people hesitate sometimes about talking, that they think, well, what if they don't like me? They're not your people.
Absolutely. I mean,
But
for
it was
me,
hard when I was growing up. It was really hard. I wanted
well,
people to like me that I didn't even like. That was really a problem. It was my
yeah.
very immature person who felt that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, because when I was young, frankly, it was like I'd like to get anybody to like me. I was so much of the outsider, so it wasn't much about popularity. It was more like, will anybody see me? Will anybody notice me? Will anybody like me? So I definitely had that going up in my growing years, being isolated, or just being somewhat bullied. I mean, looking back more clearly nowadays than when I was younger, I do realize there were people I did know who were not so averse to me, but it was the ones who were making it hard, making it clear they didn't like me, that put me in a place where I didn't think anybody liked me. So speaking to what you shared and what I've shared as well, for those people listening, we all have our own history growing up,
Yep.
and it can influence your ability to communicate and converse when you're an adult.
Yep.
But the good news is those people you're talking to as adults are not the kids you grew up with.
Yep.
At least that's the condition to be concerned about. So
Yeah.
that's the thing is having, I mean, in terms of speaking and communicating, like even doing this show with you, I wouldn't have believed I could do that when I was in my teens. So definitely things have changed in my life, and I'm sure for most people they have too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a powerful one.
So that's why sometimes I don't have to as much at all anymore. And I certainly do teach people to, if you have a talisman, a piece of jewelry or a special coin or something that you can put on your body, whether it's outside showing or not, that you go, this is my grown up adult thing. That when I wear it, I mean, really, I'm fine doing this because I am very into my Wonder Woman boots in my head. My stance with my hands on my hips. She
Yeah.
is my spirit animal. It's funny. I've said that 3 times now this week. When I really need that extra boost, or when I'm already feeling powerful, she just shows up in my brain because I feel more confident. I feel less vulnerable. I feel
Yeah.
open. And I love that you started to say vulnerable and you changed it to transparent, because the vulnerable is not available to people that you don't know. That's perfectly okay. I'm not going to be vulnerable to people that I don't know if they're going to care about my feelings. I'll be transparent about maybe I'm not sharing everything.
Right.
And I think that that is appropriate, because
Yeah.
we've all experienced the people that just want to blah everything. And it makes me feel almost a burden, even though I am a very safe person to talk to out socially. It's a lot to absorb.
Yeah.
So to think about how much you're giving out, how much you're expecting of the other person. So how do we're giving you ways of getting past the surface. And wow, isn't it fun when you find somebody that you can. I went to a dinner on Saturday night, and that's this woman. I ended up, everybody's like, where did you go? We both went to go get business cards, and we probably stood in there for 40 minutes in the bedroom. We didn't even realize the time was going by. And it was like we kept having all these things in common and people we
Yeah.
knew and we'd never met before.
Right.
It was so funny. And isn't that rare and wonderful when that happens? If it doesn't happen, at least if you can make the conversation enjoyable, relaxed,
Yeah.
interesting. And the other thing is, even if they're not your people, if you find out stuff they're doing, you're like, I want to go do that. I want to take archery lessons. I want to go kayaking. I didn't know there was dance lessons here doing that. I mean, that's what you'll find out from people when you ask, what kind of activities do you take part in? What kind of things do you do in your spare time? I mean, I told you I dated this guy that worked for the company that invented the fax that you could do through your computer, which I found fascinating. I mean, how did they invent that? When they moved from the machine to the computer the very first time. That was so interesting. So you never know what's going on in people's lives and what they're doing until you ask them.
Absolutely. And as a preface to this whole thing, so we've been talking a lot about these bigger social engagements with a lot of people around. you can certainly what's one looking for, not prepare, but almost like training wheels. You can get out and do social things with smaller groups. Like I've started doing this recently. Been going to these wine tastings that happen on Tuesday nights near the farmers market I go to. And I went there again on Tuesday, and every time I've been there, there's people I don't know. Even the people doing the wines are different every time. It's different wine companies, so different representatives.
Wow.
And you're getting like a small taste of all the wines. You're not getting it drunk, but we're standing around. And this area is a standing room. It's not sitting down. So you're basically standing around this central table, which is like a narrow table. So you're only a few feet apart. So you're going to talk to everybody there if you want to. Wow. And every time I go, I make it a point to talk to at least 2 different people, and I'm there to just keep my skills going. And then was there on Tuesday. There were only a few people there because I guess Christmas shopping, whatever was going on. And this couple were there, I was talking to them, and we just got on like a house on fire. Just really a great conversation, really fun. And at the end, it's like we said, because it wasn't until the end when we were leaving. It's like, by the way, what's your name? Because we just went straight into conversation, But it was fun because there were conversations to talk about. She was a journalist. Now she does PR, but she was saying that she basically got out of journalism because it became too partisan. And now being in PR is much safer for her.
Wow.
And it's funny, but didn't even get to what he did. We're just talking about her stuff and what was going on. And we just had a great conversation. And what started it was because one of my habits is I tend to wear a baseball cap or a hoodie that is from KCRW, my favorite radio station, my local radio station. And being at the local farmers market, most people tend to know what it is. And so when somebody asks about it, it's like, oh, great way to start a conversation. Mm-hmm. So that little key as well, not so much having just a talisman, but beyond that, having something that makes you stand out. So people go, what is that? Or they go, oh, I know that. It creates a bridge to start the communication going as well. So another way to keep the conversation going is to be visible in a way that works. So maybe you have a certain scarf that stands out, or jewelry, or a brand of something that you love, that you celebrate. It can be a great conversation starter. So why not do that as well?
Yes, if you have something, put a dog, a kind of a dog, a picture of a dog, a cat. Oh my God. I mean, there's so few people that don't like one of them.
Right.
Either a dog or a kind of dog or a cat or a kind of cat. Who's not going to say something? And the other day I was a sidewalker at my ranch where I volunteer, and the little girl, she had a sweatshirt on, and on the back it said, "Dear person walking behind me, hi, it's so nice to meet you. Person walking in front of you." What a conversation starter is that? I'm like,
so cool.
Who isn't going to go, cool sweatshirt?
Yeah,
everybody's going to say that.
Yeah, I love that.
I know. So thinking about what you're wearing when you go out and making sure it's okay. Like our ranch, I should I say this? Sure, I'm going to say it. So our ranch hand has a hat, and big letters it says WTF, which makes everybody stop since we're around little kids. But the tiny print is, where's the fish? Because he's the fish. But I have to tell everybody, goes, when he walks by. He asked the owner if it was okay, and she's absolutely, it's fine. Because it really is a very G-rated hat. But in the beginning, the adults who see the initials are like,
well, because they're making assumptions.
Everybody laughs. Everybody laughs at his hat. It's very funny.
Oh, yeah. There's a few WTF framings that I've seen out there, and when they are not that suspected one, it's much easier. It's fun.
Yes.
But that's the thing. It is a conversation starter as well, because it gets people chuckling or interested or amused. So having things, because like one of your things I've seen when I shows you wear your hats all the time, that's a conversation starter as well, because, not everybody walks around with hats on.
Nope. I get stopped a lot. People make comments a lot because I wear them a lot.
Right.
I love them. Keeps my head warm, keeps the sun out of my eyes, and people say stuff to me. Oh, I wish I could wear hats. Oh, you look so good in hats. I mean, I end up with lots of compliments, which isn't exactly why I wear them, but it's a nice side benefit.
Right.
So yeah, that's my thing. It's one of my things. And I have a friend who makes jewelry, this gorgeous jewelry, and she sells it off her body all the time.
She's a billboard.
Where'd you get that? She goes, I made it. I want it. Okay, here you go. And she gives him a card. Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to go places with her.
Yeah.
So if you have something about walk an animal, even if you don't have an animal, offer to walk your neighbor's dog. Everybody stops and says something about a dog. And my friend that I ride with has 3 golden retrievers, and she's this little tiny person, and they're very well behaved, but everybody makes a comment of this little blonde person walking these 3 great big dogs down the beach. Constant conversation.
Oh yeah, totally.
So that's partly how you can keep a conversation going, is to comment on somebody else's dog, or they comment on your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So at a party, you could certainly, a big thing that people say often is, how do you know the people here? How did you come to be here? What sorts of interests do you have that is in common with these people here? I mean, if you really can't figure, I'm hoping you're writing all this down, but if you can't think of something to do, that's a really easy thing to ask people. Why are they there? What brought them there? Because they'll tell you. Gosh, I knew nobody here and I knew nothing, but I was bored and my friend invited me, so I came and I'm having a good time. Well, how about that?
There you go. Much easier.
Yeah. And it's funny because my niece and her husband, he belonged to an officers club, and she was in library school, and they went on a tour of the officers club, and she wouldn't have ever gone for any other reason. And he only went because his friend wanted to go. And he spotted her and followed her around and kept asking her library questions, which I thought was really smart because she's pretty shy and introverted, and kept going, "This guy's following me around. I can't believe it." But he knew to ask her library questions. Did you see the library at the Officers Club? And what's your favorite book? And I think what's your favorite, because I have like 4 right now, I'm recommending to anybody that'll listen to me. If they're a kind of person that likes the movies, what movies do you like? What kind of genre do you like? What kind of books do you like? I mean, do you go to lectures? I mean, do you listen to podcasts like ours?
Exactly.
So you have to, it's hopefully, I mean, to be my person, you have to have some interest in those areas. It doesn't have to be your whole life, but there has to be some. So I'm going to ask, here's a couple books I just finished and I'm really enjoying them. What books do you enjoy? Yeah. And if they don't read it all, that's not an X. It's not a deal breaker. And I'll take note of it, though. And we'll say, well, what things do you do in your spare time? Let's see if we have some of that in common.
Yeah. No, the list you just put out was like probably the biggest starter list we can start with. Yeah. I just need to get where it came out. But that is so key to have some preparation going in, not to have a script prepared, but topic themes to work with. So yeah, movies, books are a great place to start with. Music you listen to, which can be a little bit interesting conversation. I mean, it used to be what radio stations you listen to, but that's kind of rare nowadays because most people don't listen to radio stations anymore. But podcasts, definitely plugging out podcasts would be a good thing to do if you're out and about.
Yeah, because there's not a subject out there that's not covered.
Right, and the thing is, there's so much that we can bring to the table. Now, of course, the question, if you're listening to the show and thinking to yourself, I don't do anything, this may be an issue you might want to consult before you go to your next social engagement. Just start.
Good point.
Check out some movies, listen to some podcasts, pick up a couple of books. If you haven't done any of that stuff, maybe it's time you started so you can then become more socially available and actually able to have a conversation with other people. And by the way, as we said before, being a good listener. If you don't have anything you're not sure about, when you go to an event, ask people what their recommendations are. That'll get you started right there.
I think that's really smart because we generally like being asked about ourselves, especially the extroverts. But the introverts are okay with it as long as it's not too personal of a question right off the bat. What sorts of things are the most interesting to you? What's the subject that you just could get lost? You'd go down the rabbit hole as soon as you started like Googling it. What would be the thing that would just excite you so much? I've asked people that, and I've heard about things I never thought about. Went, wow. And what did you learn? Tell me some things you learned. What would like the top 4 things?
Yeah. And I'm thinking like books and stuff. I mean, I have lots of books I recommend, but also I've probably got about maybe half a dozen books at the moment that I got because people recommend them to me. So definitely be a good listener. You can pick up good titles to books that you can read, movies you go see, shows you got. I mean, some shows I watched online on streaming that I probably wouldn't have watched if somebody had mentioned it to me. No. And now I've got a few that I'm recommending to other people. So it becomes this wonderful 2-way street. And this is the whole point of conversation. Conversation is a 2-way street. Yeah. So that way you can add to the conversation, but also take good input from other people and learn from other people and become receptive to things you hadn't thought about before. This whole, yes.
Oh, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
well, this whole context is understanding that we're talking about how to be in a dialogue versus a monologue.
Yeah.
To be
Oh, yes.
and to talk, to share, and also to receive, because that's how conversation does keep going. It's a two-way street. You don't want to listen to someone lecture for an hour and a half because they'll run out of steam and you won't remember half the things they said.
Yes.
You raised a finger. You had a thought.
I did have a thought. So now that you've asked them for their recommendations, you can say, and may I have your number or your email so that I can tell you what I thought about it? Because I'm going to go get the book, or I'm going to watch the movie, or I'm going to watch the thing on Netflix, or whatever. I'm going to research that person. And I'd love to have a chat with you after. Perfect way to get them, a very benign way to get somebody's phone number, right?
Nicely done. That is cool.
Thank you. You think I was a guy?
I'll take that one. I'll put one down too. I didn't have that one. That was good. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, I think that would be such an easy way to kind of slide in that wouldn't feel threatening at all. Right. That would just feel okay. And if they're completely not your person, they will say, yeah, well, then now you know. And now you have something. Thank you.
Thank you. Write that down.
Write that down. Put that in your notes on your phone, since nobody writes anything down anymore except you and I.
Yeah.
And I think what's really good about that is now the next time you talk, you automatically have something to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's been a week or so, it's not like, well, what did you do this week? You're going to go, oh, I read that book, or I watched that movie, or I listened to that podcast, and this is what I got out of it. Now I really can talk to you about it. Tell me more about what you thought. I mean, how fun is that? Absolutely. My late husband and he'd never listened to audiobooks, and I am totally addicted. So I would get books, and then if we thought the other person would like it, we'd exchange, and then we'd have the best conversations about it.
Oh, yeah.
That was really a fun thing to do.
Yeah. No, I've got I have a few books that I've got queued up, and I've also got a bunch of credits I haven't claimed yet. So definitely I need to get back on the audiobook trail. I've been a bit neglecting that. So I'll say one thing, when I go out socializing with people in the next couple of weeks, I'll be listening for recommendations on audiobooks because I have space to grab a few.
Oh boy, I love audiobooks because not only do I listen to it in the car always, along with my music and talk radio, but I listen to them sometimes when I'm walking. If I'm not in the mood for a podcast, I listen to them when I'm working in the yard. My neighbors are all like, oh, that's a good book. I think we'll get that book. We've been listening to it over the fence. I think they all think I'm a little very interesting because I do all these things. I think it's just this normal way of acting, and they don't, but they're like, I'm going to get that and work in my yard too, because it's a nice company. I like it. I like listening to somebody read to me no matter what I'm doing, and especially in the yard. It's lovely. And if you're going to be out there for a while, you can get through a couple CDs.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely fun. Or if you're listening on audiobook, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. I'm fine getting the audiobooks from the library and my brother.
No, the audiobooks, I mean, the challenge is that you only have one channel to go through kind of thing, which is Audible, which is part of Amazon.
Yeah.
But the array of books they have and the variety of books is phenomenal. I mean, there's probably 3 books from audio I listened to. I didn't actually read the books physically.
Yeah.
I recommend highly to people when they want to get the book, if they want to get the physical book or the audio book, because the quality of what's taught, what's in it is so enjoyable and worthwhile.
Oh,
but
you can get them from the library for free.
That's true.
And right now, my library is not having any late charges. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, send me the information about which library that is.
Yeah, Fullerton Library has no late charges right now, because I was almost done with my lessons in chemistry book, and I called and I said, it won't let me renew it. And they said, well, because there's 20 people that are waiting on hold and we only have 3 copies. And I said, so tell me how much late fees are. They go, don't tell anybody, but there's no late fees. I said, well, I'll bring it back in 3 days. I'll be done. And I did. I brought it back in 3 days for those 20 people waiting for the book, because it's such a good book. It's a fiction book, but it's delightful. I enjoyed every minute.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. But the audiobooks, I mean, they have shelves and shelves and shelves for free for the not cost of a library card. You can go get audiobooks. So it'll give you another layer of conversations to have with people. If you don't have time to sit around and read, if you walk, if you drive, you can listen.
Absolutely. Yeah, audiobooks are probably one of the best resources now because you learn stuff and you get entertained and you have something to talk about with other people. So it's a great resource.
You can learn a language, you can learn history. I know. We should get a feed
Sponsorship.
for, yes, I think so. For our promoting on our very popular show.
Indeed. On that note.
So if you're set for going to holiday parties or, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, and you're stumped for what to do, and you said, well, I didn't hear what all the things you said, you can listen to the replay or you can call one of us, and we'd be happy to go over any kind of hesitation or concerns that you're having about talking to people. And as Barry mentioned, and I have a couple of men who've written to me going, they have no life. You might want to talk to us about getting a life and finding some interest of your own before you go out and try to have these conversations.
Indeed.
Very
Yes.
important.
Right.
So the way to get a hold of me is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Click on what's holding you back from love, and you can have a private, personal, complimentary conversation with me, and we'll get to the bottom of the challenges that you're having in your dating life. You can also send me a personal email at christine@theperfectcatch.com, and all my social media places where you can see my videos with Barry and my videos alone are at Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. Pinterest. Geez, I always have to leave one off. And I guess I could write them down, but I like that you help me every time. So maybe I won't write them down.
Unless we wanted to, so I appreciate the opportunity.
And Barry, tell them how they would get a hold of you, please.
So similarly, I also have websites.
Like you help me.
Indeed. I'm very good at resourceful and helpful of my clients as well. So the way to reach me and find out more about me is go to my website, which is my name, which is barryselby.com. On the front page of my site, there is a link to sign up for a deep dive discovery session with me on the front page. Also a link to get on my email list if you just want to become a subscriber. Also my website and other pages is my book, my online courses, my coaching and other things as well. And on social media, you can definitely check out, because that show, I save it on my YouTube channel and also onto my Facebook page. So you follow me there, you'll get to see the replays from archived as well. Although frankly, YouTube's much easier because it's much better for cataloging videos, because that's what YouTube's strength is. So all my social media platforms, except for Instagram, is my name, which is Barry Selby, as I mentioned. So that's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Clubhouse, TikTok. I think that's all of those, and then and YouTube, of course, YouTube. And I have a playlist saved on there called Let's Talk Dating, so you can check out the actual replays of this show there too. And on Instagram, it's the real Barry Selby, as I originally lost my other account, but you can follow me there, and I post quite a few things there regularly as well. So lots of places you can find me, lots of places you can find Christine, and lots of places to go this time of year to go meet people. So hope this has helped you.
I hope so too. And you'll always find us here on Thursdays at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between, with interesting topics about dating and relationships. And we will welcome your comments and questions that you have. If you have subjects you'd like us to cover in the future, and if you have friends who are struggling with their dating and relationships, please share our podcast with them.
There you go. I look forward to seeing you next week. And have a wonderful Christmas, those who celebrate.
Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah.
Indeed.
And next year we'll